Hmm. And so when we think about and hear the words rising in God, right? Rising, growth, expansion, reaching. And all of that has to come from somewhere, right? You grow from the ground, you rise up from something. And so today's talk is The Ground of Abundance, is the title, The Ground of Abundance. The 20th century theologian Paul Tillich spoke of God as the ground of being, the ground of being. And he asserted that God is not a thing, a person, but it is really a foundational state, right? A foundational force that upholds all existence. It is a foundation. He said God does not exist. He is being itself, right? God does not exist. God is being itself, beyond essence, beyond existence. Therefore, to argue that God exists is to deny him, right? So what he's really saying, it's almost Taoist, right? It's like God is greater than what we can imagine. It is the source of all things. It is the ground of being. And so, just as the ground supports life, and just as there's this invisible, ever present foundation that supports everything, there is a ground of abundance. There is a ground of abundance. And I want to expand on this idea that there is this ground of abundance, this place, pre existence, this place from which all things arise, from which source resources us. And so, this all sounds great, right? These concepts sound really good when we're in here on Sundays, don't they? Sound good, you feel good, the music's good, we're all in alignment. But like, how do you hold on to this once you get out into the world? As Jenna said, once people start peopling and humans start humaning around you, when you don't have enough money, when you are laid off, right? When you are surrounded perhaps by people who don't believe the same thing you do, and they're in fear and lack and limitation, how do we stay in this ground of abundance? How do we stay in this lofty space of that which is before all of existence? And so one of the things I want us to begin to do as we think about this ground of being, right, this ground of abundance, which can sound a little esoteric, a little abstract, if we look at the ground of abundance, literally the ground that we're on right now in Silicon Valley is the literal physical ground of abundance. Think about this. So before the tech companies and before the farms, there were indigenous people here. And those people knew that abundance is a fundamental nature. It's a fundamental way of life. There was fishing and hunting and gathering and working in co-creation with the land, working in co-creation with abundance, with the all that is. And this was an abundant place, a source of great resources, great natural resources, right? When is it Ohlone? The Ohlone people were inhabiting this land, and it was a place of fruitfulness and abundance that was used and utilized and co-created, not dominated, right? And then came the farms. This was farm country. There's so many people I meet here in San Jose who've lived here and talk about how or grew up here or were born here, and they talk about the farms, right, and the abundance, and there's still farms, right? I see people in the back shaking their head, right? The farms and the orchards and the abundance of fruit and dairy and all of the things that this land yields. This is an abundant place. The literal ground produces supply. It produces food. It produces fruit. And it's known for that. And that's what has been happening here for a long time. And then along comes the tech industry, right? And another source of abundance comes up. This is an abundance of ideas, abundance of technology, and so fruitful and so abundant that literally what has happened here has created the richest people on earth. The people with the most physical wealth came out of this region, right? This is a place of abundance, of ideas, of expansion. The things that are created here in our tech industry touch the world, transform the world, Right? This is a massively abundant place. And so what I'm hoping is that you see the pattern here, that no matter what, abundance has revealed itself on this land, on this physical place that we are standing. Right? Abundance continues to reveal itself and continues to reveal itself and continues to reveal itself, because this is the ground of abundance. It is the place from which things come and flow. And one of the beautiful things that we have is a statement in the Bible that I love, when Jesus said in John 10:10, I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly, right? Not scraping by, not paycheck to paycheck, not a little bit, but have it abundantly. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of our center philosophically and Science of Mind, says the supply and demand are one. And in the true order of things, supply always meets demand. In the true order of things, supply always meets demand, right? Always meets demand, because the natural order is abundance. That is the natural order. And so when we think about abundance as the fundamental nature of reality, and literally we can see it in the land that we live in, one of the things I say to my clients many times, the clients that I work with on a spiritual level, if they are interested in exploring prosperity or expanding that, is I say, look at the natural world. If you can't get a sense of abundance in the spiritual, or sense of abundance as an energy, or sense of abundance as a God quality, just look at the world around you. I said this last week. You can't even count the number of grains of sand on the beach in Santa Cruz. You can't count the number of grains of dirt in the parking lot, right? You can't count or quantify the air that we're breathing. You can't count or quantify the number of leaves on the trees all around us. The natural order is abundance. Right? The natural order is abundance. And it's when we as humans, when we let our thinking, we let ourselves get separate from abundance, separate from the divine, that's when scarcity starts to happen. Right? We separate ourselves from abundance. We separate ourselves from the ground of being through our consciousness, through our thoughts, through our associations, through our partnerships, through our friends, through our family, through the people we hang out with, through the social media that we consume, right? We separate ourselves, and then we buy into all these other messages that are saying, there's not enough, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to right? And we get caught in that, and then that becomes our experience. Or perhaps it's come through our family line, through our lineage, right? Scarcity. There's not enough money. There's not enough money. Money doesn't grow on trees. It does, actually. Can you count the number of leaves in all the trees around here? Right? There's abundance showing up everywhere that you look. So part of what we are doing and exploring this month is, how do we get aligned with the absolute capital T truth, right? That spiritual principle that does not waver, the principle of abundance. How do we get ourselves aligned and anchored in that to such a degree that no matter what happens in the economy, no matter what happens with all the layoffs and the job cuts and all the things that we see, moment after moment after moment happening around us, that we don't get caught up in that swirling fear, that we don't get caught up in that consciousness of separation, right? That consciousness of, there's not enough, so we got to cut. There's not enough, so we got to get rid of. There's not, right? We have to move out of that and stay anchored in abundance and plenty. Another point I want to make is that when we are surrounded by others, right? Because all this stuff sounds great until, it's all fun and games until you're around people who you care about, who don't believe the same thing you do, right? It could be a spouse, it could be close friends, it could be at work, right? It's all fun and games until you're trying to deal with that. Yes? Would you agree with that? Yeah? And so how do we then deal with, sort of non-believers, or folks who are really caught in the effect, really caught in the news stories, really caught in the fear? How do we deal with that, right? And so one of the things is to first realize that no matter where you are on your spiritual journey, if you are surrounded by naysayers, if you're surrounded by people who don't believe the same thing, or they're stuck in fear, they are a reflection of your consciousness. Right? They are a mirror of your consciousness. Now, maybe not in totality, right? They may be exhibiting extreme fear and you are not feeling that or thinking that. But if they're in your awareness, it's a part of your consciousness showing up for you to heal, right? So that's just sort of the first step is acceptance, right? Because sometimes I'll have people say to me, "What do I do? I'm fine. My consciousness is fine. But what do I do, when so and so doesn't think this way?" And it's like, well, if so and so is in your life and in your face, then they're reflecting some part of you that is still believing in scarcity, right? So I want to offer that to you. So if you are sensing that, feeling that, experiencing that in your life, and this is not a blame, this is just a noticing, like, oh, this person really annoys me because they're always bringing up this negative stuff, right? Or this group of people. And so the thing for us to do as 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 seekers and practicers on this spiritual path is to recognize, oh, this is a part of my consciousness that is showing up for me to heal, for me to know the absolute truth, right? And for me to then begin to ask, where am I practicing scarcity or living in scarcity? It might not even be about money. It may be somewhere else. Maybe I'm withholding from my partner, my beloved partner. Maybe I'm withholding myself from my children. Maybe there's a way I'm being scarce. I'm practicing scarcity, or I'm being miserly in other relationships. Maybe I'm doing that to myself, right? In my own health, in my own vitality, my own well-being. For myself, I always know when I am not drinking enough water, I always go, okay, well, what is happening? Like, why are you not resourcing yourself, right? Why are you not hydrating? Why are you not making sure that you have enough water, right? Because that's a form of scarcity. And I left the desert. And came here. And then sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I've had no water all day, right? Or 2 days, hardly any water. Had other liquids, but no water, right? So it may be that we're practicing scarcity or miserliness with ourselves. And so that begins that is the first move to make when you are feeling like there are people in my realm, and if they would just get it together, I'd be okay. Nope, they're a reflection of your consciousness. And so the move is to go within and look for, where is this living in me, right? So I can call it out, put it out there, recognize it, and then begin to shift. Yeah, are y'all following what I'm saying? Yes. Does this resonate, y'all? Okay, I heard a little clapping in some places around here, right? And so that's the sort of the first step, just recognizing, as Ernest Holmes says, the only thing that limits us is our unbelief, right? It's the only thing that limits us is our unbelief, yeah? So the second move is, even once you have sort of rooted out in yourself that scarcity thinking, that miserliness, right? Where you're holding back, holding tight, where you're in lack and limitation. Even when you've rooted that out, then you still have to get yourself anchored in the unshakable truth, right? So that you become then a light so bright and so unshakable that it dissolves what other people are thinking or saying or whatever's going on for them. It just, they have to fall away, or they have to change their tune, right? You have to get so unshakable in the truth that nothing can counter it. Yes. And you're certainly not moved by it, right? You're certainly not snagged by it. It doesn't snag your emotion or your attention. You're not even irritated by it, because it's no thing. Yeah. And so when we talk about planting yourself in the unshakable truth, again, think about this ground of being that exists as though it is a physical ground, this ground of abundance as a physical ground, and planting yourself so deeply in that truth, right? Roots deep in that ground, in that earth, so deep that you cannot be moved by the winds of change that are here, that are coming, and will always exist. They will always exist. And you plant yourself deeply by, I say this every single Sunday. I know you're tired of it, but you plant yourself deeply by doing your spiritual practice. Because you cannot have a consciousness of abundance if you're not in relationship with abundance. right? You can't have a knowing of the absolute truth if you don't have a taste of it, right? If you're not practicing abundance and practicing being in the ground of abundance through your meditation, through your prayer work, through taking classes like 4T and other things, where you're constantly planting the seeds, and nourishing them within your own being, right? Every meditation is a watering of the seeds. Right? Every class is a watering of the seeds. Every time you come to a Sunday service, you're watering, you're cultivating, you're doing everything necessary for abundance to grow up out of that ground, for your supply to emerge. Right? And you're getting yourself so anchored in, those roots are so deep that nothing can shake it. Not a person complaining, not a person naysaying, right? Not the news, not any of those things. But you have to get to a point of being unshakable. How many people here are gardeners or have ever planted something, right? So is it not true that you, in order to have that plant grow, you have to plant that seed deep enough for most times, and then you have to cultivate it, right, and sort of protect it so that it can actually grow, and you need the roots to really take hold in order for that growth to happen. Is that not true? Yeah. Interestingly, I'm not a great plant person. I have a brown thumb, but I can give you a metaphor though. That's the metaphor that's coming through. But I do know, whether I can do it or not, that with a plant, those roots have got to take hold, right? And they've got to be strong and anchored in order for that plant to grow. It's the same thing with your consciousness. It's the same thing with your abundance consciousness. Planting those seeds in that ground of abundance, and then water them, cultivate them, care for them, take care of them. And here's the thing, I say this all the time: you cannot fool the law. You can't fool the law. So if you don't give that, if you know part of your watering process is, I need to meditate and pray every day. I need to have a spiritual practice every day. And then you decide, well, I'm not gonna do it every day, right? That plant's not gonna grow. Just like if you don't water your plant, you can't fool the law, right? Either you're doing the things to grow and cultivate something, or you're not. But you're not fake. I mean, you're not fooling anyone if you're like, well, I'll just not drink any water for 5 days and see what happens, right? Right? Nobody's fooled when I fall out at that point, right? Are y'all following this? I feel like I say the same thing every Sunday. Are y'all still with me? Say it again. Yeah, 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 because here's what I feel so deeply and why I'm even on this. I feel so deeply that we're in such a time of, this is like once in a eon change that we're going through. And our country is going through such an incredible change. And what I want most for my beloveds in this space, in this room, online, in this community, is for us to be anchored in that which is changeless as we go through this time that we came in here to go through, right? There's massive change happening, massive revelation happening, massive things that'll be coming to the forefront and revealed. And it will require us to be anchored in truth. That is why I'm here. And that is why we're here, right? To do our own individual work, but also as a community, to love each other, to be our seeds together, right? In this great grand consciousness, to grow together, to water together, to pray together, to strengthen together, and to love each other through this. Because that's what it's going to take and what the world needs. So that's why I say the same thing every single week, right? Every single week. The other thing I want you to be aware of, and the move for you to make, is once you are anchored in that unshakable truth, then you begin to lead with energy, not arguments, right? You lead with energy, you lead with your consciousness, not arguments. You are the light. You are the capital T truth. You are abundance. You are clear. And when you walk into spaces and walk into places, you instantly shift the vibration, not by what you do, but by who you be, the consciousness you hold, right? The truth that you're anchored in. When you're anchored in the truth, then you can walk into any space, you can be in any conversation, and you shift the vibration. You determine what that space is going to be, not allowing the news to determine it or other people to determine it or whatever these outside forces are. You are the master of your own fate, the captain of your ship. And you walk into spaces and your consciousness is so clear and so unshakable that you establish the vibration. And anything that is unlike the vibration you establish cannot stay in that space. It must either fall away or come into alignment, right? And that is why we do this work, so that we can establish the vibration. So wherever we are, it is sacred and holy ground. Not in a better than thou kind of way or holier than thou kind of way. I'm talking real work, real world energy. I'm sure each of you has felt a time where haven't you felt it where someone walks into the room and they have sort of foul energy and it makes everything sort of poisoned? Yeah, have you felt that? Yeah? Okay, have you felt when someone walks into the room and their energy is so powerful and positive, everyone feels it? It shifts the room, yes? Right, so you know how this works. And so your task is to do your work at such a deep level that when you walk into a room you don't have to even open your mouth. This is not about being an extrovert or an introvert. I'm an introvert, right? It's not about that. It's about being so strong in the vibration of truth that the energy in the room shifts by your presence, right? That is what the practitioner students are doing, right? They're studying and they're working and they're learning and working on their own consciousness, their own stuff that's coming up to the surface. They're doing spiritual practice so that they can see and be places of absolute truth no matter what else is going on. Right? And that is what the world is going to need from all of us, is to be those places that know the truth while everything around us is shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. And people are freaking out. People are freaking out. I'm on so many group texts. I have to, from family and different groups, I have to turn my phone off because it's like constant, right? Because people are having a huge response to what's happening, and rightfully so. But I'm asking the people in this room to practice the stuff that we know so that we can be part of the group that shifts this world, right? And shifts this into a place that works for all, right? Are y'all with me on that? Yeah? Yeah? So here's my question for you. Will you trust? No. Do you trust that we are on the ground of abundance? Yes. Do you trust that not only is the ground of abundance a spiritual quality, but it's also physically in this land? Can you see that? Yeah? Can you trust that? Yes. Can you commit to being anchored in this ground of abundance? Yes. Can you commit to doing your spiritual work so that you are unshakable in your faith? Can you be such a power and vibration of truth and abundance that you shift the spaces you walk into? Yes. Yeah. So this is what we are called to do, right? This is what we are called to do. Do you feel like we all got married? Okay. So say, if you want to get married, say I do. Okay. Y'all are so funny. Oh my goodness gracious. So funny. So delightful. All right, y'all. So let me just wrap this thing up here and we're going to head into prayer. The core things I want you to get, the core things I really, really want you to get is that there is a ground of abundance. It is inexhaustible. It is infinite. I want you to get that you have access to it. You have access to it, and it can access you to the degree that you're open to it, right? I want you to really, really get that your work is to be so anchored, you're unshakable, to be so planted, so rooted, that you literally create your own economy. You literally create your own economy that's not tied to whatever's happening in the world, right? Your own seasons of abundance and flow and harvest. This is what I want. I want you to be so anchored in this truth that the naysayers cannot shake you. They can't touch you. They can't get to you. They can't make you doubt. They can't pull you into argument, right? There's no need to be an argument when you already stand in truth, right? And I want for you to be so steeped in this, so steeped in this, that you shift the room, you shift the conversation, you shift the vibration, you shift the consciousness. You lay down the vibration. You lay down the consciousness. You lay down what it is, the conversation, yes? Not the world, not the world. So let's turn within.